Hi and welcome in this new video. Hope you're doing well, hope your day is great, and stay because you are going to discover how to install and run Airflow on a small EC2 instance. Indeed, there is this strong belief that you need a lot of resources just to run Airflow, but that's not the case. One thing to note is that Airflow needs a database to run, and usually that database is Postgre, and Postgre needs at least 2 GB of RAM. But that's it. If you have at least 2 GB of RAM, you can run Airflow on your machine, and I'm gonna show you how to do it with a small EC2 instance that has 1 CPU and 2 GB of RAM. My name is Marc. I'm a best-selling instructor on Udemy about Airflow, so if you want to learn more about it, take a look at my courses on this platform. Also, if you don't want to miss any video, please subscribe to my channel, and last but not least, smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. That will help me a lot. So without further ado, if you're ready, let's go. If you want to follow this video, you need to have access to an AWS account. Also, as we are going to use a small EC2 instance that has only 2 GB of RAM and 1 CPU, this one is not free tier eligible. However, it's extremely cheap, so no worries about that. In addition, you don't have to pause the video just to write everything that I'm gonna write. Don't do that. You have all the instructions in the link in the description below on a beautiful Notion page that I made for you. The first step is to go to your AWS account and search for the EC2 service. Then click on it, and now you can launch an instance by clicking on this button, and you have to name your instance. So let's say tiny-airflow. Then for the OS image, we're gonna use the Ubuntu image, and you have to select the instance type. We are not going to use micro because, well, 1 GB of RAM is not enough. Remember that Postgres needs at least 2 GB of RAM, so let's use the t2.small, which has 1 CPU and 2 GB of memory. In addition, you have to create a new key pair if you don't have one already. Otherwise, if you have already created a key pair, just select yours like that. And that's it. You are ready to launch your instance. Click on that button and wait for your EC2 instance to be ready. If you look at your instances, you will find the Tiny Airflow instance, select it, and click on connect. From there, you have many different ways of connecting to your EC2 instance, but choose EC2 instance connect and click on connect. It's the easiest way to access your EC2 instance. And as you are going to see, that opens a bash session so that you can interact with your EC2 instance and configure it. By the way, at this stage, you don't have to type everything that I'm gonna type. Please don't do that. Just click on the link in the description below where you will find all the instructions, and you just have to copy and paste in the terminal. So let's do that. The first step is to update whatever the packages are already installed on the EC2 instance with the following command. So execute sudo apt update. So let's wait a little bit. Now it is done. We have to install pip as we are going to use it in order to install the Python package Airflow. So accept to install the following packages to have pip on your EC2 instance. Pip is a Python package manager, so if you need to install any Python script or library, you have to use pip. It's really easier to do it with it. At some point you will get this message, select all of those services and hit enter, then wait a little bit, and as you can see, it's done. So now you have pip. The next step is to install SQLite, because when you initialize Airflow for the first time, Airflow needs to have a SQLite instance. So for that, you have the following command. Again, you just need to copy and paste those commands from your Notion page. Let's wait a little bit. And now SQLite is installed. The next step is to install Python Valve, as we want to have a Python virtual environment. Remember that a Python virtual environment allows you to install any Python packages without having any conflicts with other Python packages that already exist on your system. So that's why it's very important to have a Python virtual environment. It's truly a best practice to install Airflow. Back to the terminal, use the following command to install the Python virtual environment. Wait a little bit. And now we can create that Python virtual environment with the following command, python3-m venv in order to create a new folder venv that will correspond to our Python virtual environment. To activate it, you have to type source venv, then bin and activate. And as you can see, the prompt is now with venv, which means I'm inside my Python virtual environment and I can install any Python packages without any conflict with other Python packages on my system. Okay, now this step is optional, but there is a good chance that you will have to do it. Otherwise, you will get an error as soon as you try to initialize Airflow. So you have to install this library by executing the following command, accept to install it. Again, you might not have to do it, but I strongly recommend you to install that library, otherwise there is a good chance that you will get errors. Now, everything is installed, we are ready to install Apache Airflow. How? Well, by using the following command. So let me show you that command. So this one uses pip install, the Python package manager, in order to install the package apache-airflow with Postgre. As we want to connect to a Postgre database, we need the additional stuff that the Postgre module provides. Then we select the following version, 2.5, the latest version as I'm recording the video, and the constraint file that contains all dependencies with the correct versions. This is extremely important. If you don't use this constraint file, you might end up with dependency errors. So this is truly a best practice to use a constraint file. Hit enter and let's wait until Airflow is installed on the EC2 instance. Alright, Airflow is installed on the instance, we are ready to move on. The next step is to initialize Airflow by executing the following command, airflow db init, in order to initialize the database of Airflow, and so basically all the files and folders that Airflow needs to run. Hit enter and wait a little bit. As you can see, by default we use a SQLite database, and next we have to install Postgre. Why? Because we want to use Postgre to run Airflow. If you stick with SQLite, you won't be able to run many tasks at the same time, whereas with Postgre you are able to run multiple tasks at the same time. So let's install Postgre with the following command, execute it, accept to install the additional packages, and let's wait a little bit. Okay, we have Postgre. Now the next step is to connect to the Postgre database with pSQL and create a database Airflow as well as a user with a password and grant privileges to that user. Why? Because Airflow needs to connect to the database in order to store data in it, and that's why you have to create that user and the database. So let's do that. For this, you can use the following command in order to use Postgre and execute pSQL to connect to your database. From there, you have 3 requests to execute, one to create the database, another one to create the user Airflow with the password Airflow, and the last one to grant privileges to that user with the database Airflow. So hit enter in order to execute all of the 3 requests, and you are good to go. Hit Ctrl-D twice in order to exit pSQL as well as the Postgres session, and now you are back to your Python virtual environment. You need to configure Airflow so that you connect to Postgre and not to the SQLite database. How? Well, if you look at your current folder, you have a new folder Airflow that you got by executing the command airflow db init. If you go into that folder with cd airflow and type ls, you have the following files and folders: airflow.cfg, airflow.db, which is the SQLite database, the logs, and the web server config file. Here, we want to use the Airflow configuration file, which is airflow.cfg. In that file, you have to specify the connection string to the database you want, in our case, Postgre. So for that, we use the following command in order to replace the default connection string, which is a connection to SQLite, as you can see here, with the Postgre connection string using PostgreSQL with the user Airflow, the password Airflow, the local host, and the Airflow database as configured before in pSQL. So hit enter and you have successfully configured Airflow to connect to Postgre. One thing to remember is that this value is defined at the SQL Alchemy parameter. So if you type grep SQL Alchemy on airflow.cfg, you can see the following parameters, SQL Alchemy con, with the following value. So this is where you can define your connection string. Another thing that you have to change is the executor. So let me show you that. Again, if we type grep, then executor, airflow.cfg, you can see this parameter executor with by default the sequential executor, which means you can execute tasks only sequentially, one after the other. This is the default configuration. You want to change that executor in order to execute multiple tasks at the same time. So let's change this value by the local executor. So use the following command in order to change the sequential executor to the local executor, as you can see here. If you don't know what is an executor, keep in mind that it's basically a way to define how and on which system your tasks are executed by Airflow. with the local executor, you are saying that you can execute as many tasks as you want, as long as you have enough resources on a single machine. Okay, so Airflow is configured. What is the last step? Well, you have to create a user. But before that, you need to initialize Airflow again with Airflow dbinit, as we changed the configuration file. And as you can see, we connect to Postgre now. Then last but not least, to create the user, you can execute the following command: Airflow users create with the username Airflow, the first and last name Airflow, the role is admin, there are many other roles like viewer or OP and so on, and the email address is airflow@gmail.com. Obviously it's a fake email address. Hit enter, then let's wait a little bit, and at some point you have to give a password to that user. You can just type Airflow as well, so let's type Airflow and hit enter, Airflow again, and you have successfully created a new user, Airflow, with the role admin. Whew, that was a bit of work, but it's time to do the exciting part, which is to run Airflow. Actually, before doing that, we need to open the port 8080 to the EC2 instance, because by default, this is the port that the Airflow web server uses. So go back to the EC2 dashboard and then click on instances, then go to your instance by clicking on it, and under security, you can click on security group and go to inbound rules, and you have to edit the inbound rules. So edit them, then add a new rule, custom TCP, use the port 8080, and then select the source anywhere IPv4. Save the rules, and now you will be able to access the Airflow dashboard on the port 8080. Back to the terminal, run the following command in order to execute, and don't forget the little thing at the end, by the way, in order to run the web server in background. So hit enter, and as you can see, the Airflow web server is running. Let's wait a little bit, you're gonna get some logs here. All right, and now we need to run the scheduler, which is the second part of Airflow. So type Airflow scheduler, and you don't have to use this little thing to run it in background. In that case, we want to run it in foreground. Again, now the scheduler is running. It looks like we have everything to use Airflow, the web server and the scheduler. The last step is to go back to the EC2 dashboard, then select our EC2 instance and use the following public IP address, open a new tab, paste it and type :8080, hit enter, and as you can see, we land on the authentication page of Airflow. Type Airflow, and we access the beautiful dashboard of Airflow. So from there, you are able to run your DAGs. Let me show you that it works. So let's take, for example, the example DAG decorator. So let's start scheduling it. As you can see, the schedule interval is known, so we actually have to run it manually. We can do that just by clicking here and trigger DAG. So let's see if that works. Let's wait. And as you can see, we have a DAG run and a couple of tasks running. So congratulations, at this stage you have successfully configured your EC2 instance, which has only one CPU, 2 GB of RAM, with a Postgre instance running and Airflow up and running as well. So truly, Airflow is not as resource consuming that people think. You can run Airflow on a small EC2 instance that has only one CPU and 2 GB of RAM. Should you use this configuration in production? I don't know, but you can still use the local executor, see what you can do with it, see if it is enough for your workload, and if it's not, then you can look to other solutions such as running Airflow on top of Kubernetes or running Airflow with Celery. Alright, that's it for this video. I truly hope you enjoyed it. If so, please subscribe to my channel. That will help me a lot. I wish you a wonderful day. Take care and see you for our next one.